All right. All right, there we are. I think we're live, but lately I've needed to record just in case. I'm gonna try to block that camera off in the back. Okay. Anyway, we just gotta go. We gotta go. Happy to see you all today. Those of you all who are present to join us today, we appreciate it. Welcome to This Week in Supervision. And we're gonna go over some things today, and we're gonna try to go really fast. Because the time gets away from me. I'm late getting in to do this today. My daughter is graduating from co-op into kindergarten, or whatever you want to call it, if it's really a graduation. But we're excited for her. And so we're going to go on and get into some things we want to talk about. All right. And let's just see if I can square my screens away, if I got the technology right. But I can't give away what we're going to talk about, but let's what kind of title do I have? Just come up with these titles. Clients who don't trust. What makes them this way? All right. So have you experienced working with a client that doesn't trust, had a supervisee that's working with clients or client who does not trust? And I'm talking about that they don't trust others, but they don't have a high degree of trust concerning themselves. So they may have very low self-esteem. They may not be that confident in themselves. What does it look like when there's nothing that you have to grab onto as an individual? What does that look like from a psychotherapy point of view? Just thinking about it, if you are treating somebody like this, what's likely the background? What's likely going to be, if you were just to take a guess at it, how would you think that this type of person might do in relationships? What would their prognosis be or likely be if you were to treat them? And so it's a lot of questions that we would want to ask to get down to the bottom of this. And we want to be familiar with these things before we even have these types of clients to line up or come through the office or come through your virtual screen or wherever you are providing your services. So this is something that we talked about. And so we went through a number of things. Um, and so we're going to go on and get into it. All right. And just before we do, of course, I'd like to share with you some of the things. And it's just going to take 30 seconds. Want to share with you a little bit about what we have going on and in our world here. Before we see, this is supposed to already be set up, man. Like with my studio dude, man. What's up? Like, I'm the studio guy. All right, because we got some video that we want to show too. But just before we get into that, this is going to be an interesting one because you're going to be able to see somebody live who exhibits these types of characteristics and have a better understanding concerning how we get this way. All right, but before we get into that, we do have our supervisor training coming in July 29th and 30th. So if you're ready, I'm telling you, once you go through this, I have people asking me questions all the time because I want you to win. Okay. And there are opportunities available if you become and when you become a supervisor. And I think it's going to get bigger. I think it's going to get bigger. All right. And then we have our DSM-5 TR training, which is really exciting. And we're having that on June the 14th. That's going to be on a Friday. So register for that if you are interested. If you're LICSW, you will need to have a DSM training from someone. Hopefully you'll get it through us. It is mandatory now. But if you're just looking for CEUs, it's a great place to go. And then if you say, man, I don't have time or I want a less expensive option, I'm just looking for something where I can move and go and do it at my own pace, check out our self-paced training. And we have a training that will be, we get a special little something with Social Workers Alabama, but we'll be giving you some more information on that. We try to do those every month. All right. So let us get into what we'll talk about. And so look, I went through a lot of different things with my supervisees on this one. I'm going to try to share it with you because you kind of want to keep them on the edge to and you want them to be able to be challenged by your questions. Okay. And so here's some questions that feel free to draft for yourself. I'm gonna try to see if I can share my screen again. And you can use these questions as we go through this scenario, um, involving a person who has attachment issues. Has attachment issues. How do you work to get someone attached who really does not trust? And a lot of times it's our expectation that because we're kind and we think that we're loving and we're ready to take them in and try to heal them and things like that, that they're going to trust us. But wrong. As a matter of fact, the minute they do start to trust you is when you need to be aware that something might just go off really bad. Because you know why? Why would that happen? Now I want to get off target here. But that happens because many times they start to get anxiety once they start building a trust relationship or what seems to be a trust relationship with somebody, because they think and believe many times that they're gonna be abandoned. So many times they will start sabotaging that relationship right in therapy because things are getting too close. And in the last time that something I had a relationship like this and it got really close, in the back of their minds, they're saying, hey man, that didn't go well. I was hurt. You know, that's not necessarily the words that they're using, but they feel that in their bodies. And the body starts to go into protective mode and literally begins to sabotage many times without them even being consciously aware of what's going on. So how I started off in this situation, I started with this question, and I started with this question. It was pretty interesting. Because when I start off, I said, hey, our client's a 30-year-old woman named Glenda who believes her mother never loved her, hates her, and never wanted her. Despite a lack of concrete evidence supporting this belief, Glenda remains fixated on this notion, which impacts her current relationships and emotional well-being. One thing to note is that Glenda was given to her grandparents. One thing to note is that Glenda was given to her grandparents when she was 8 years old. That's trauma. That's trauma. Okay. Her grandparents sexually abused her. That's more trauma. What best describes the behaviors being demonstrated by Glenda? So then to answer this question, we have to go back and focus in on what it's saying about Glenda. And it says that she has this belief that her mother never loved her, hates her, and never wanted her, despite a lack of concrete evidence supporting this. Just because someone is giving up doesn't mean that their parents didn't love them. And so I don't want to get too deep into that. But that wasn't enough information for most of the group. And so we had to break it down this way. And so then we gave a multiple choice, what brought it home a little bit better. Glenda often views her mother in black and white terms, believing her mother either completely hates her or completely loves her with no middle ground. This tendency to see people and situation in all or nothing terms is an example of which psychological defense. Notice this falls under psychological defense. Defenses are used to protect. They're, according to Freud, unconscious, primarily from the unconscious. And it happens when we start to have an overwhelming bit of anxiety to where that anxiety just boils almost to the top. And before it explodes, it's like we've got to find something to relieve so that that water can cool, go down, things of that nature. And so then we do these things. And it's in a sense, it's respite and relief. Splitting is one. And so that is the answer to this one. I hope you got that one right. So then we go down and we say, hey, what is splitting? So then we throw another question at them. What diagnosis is most commonly associated with the defense mechanism known as splitting? As a matter of fact, when we said what is splitting, well, this is just kind of under the title, what is splitting. Then we got into some video that kind of broke down what splitting is, what it looks like. But we also wanted to challenge them because we want to make sure, come on, we're master's level, we're going into clinical. Do we understand these types of behaviors? Do we understand how to diagnose? That's crucial if we're going to be effective going into the field. So we got to hurry up here. Okay, so for this one, oh man, for this one, the answer, of course, is borderline personality disorder. And borderline personality disorder is probably one of the most common diagnoses that are associated with splitting. Okay. And what is splitting? Splitting is a hallmark defense mechanism in which individuals who have borderline personality disorder use. And it's an all or nothing, kind of like the question it said. It's an all or nothing thing. They see things in black or white. It's like I remember, situation and somebody saying, hey, they believe a certain thing about a person, but they didn't have any proof. And so what we learn through some of our video here, this was kind of breaking down what splitting is and what it looks like. I'll try to put some of these links in here if I can get around to it. And common phrases stated by we in some of the groups we went over that, right? But we try to break down what splitting is and how do you handle that if you have a client who is just in an all or nothing mode. And that's how Glenda is. Glenda is in an all or nothing mode. She's saying, no, my parents hate me. Okay. And so one of the techniques that we learn, because that would have been another question. I don't know if it's going to come up, but one of the questions that we ask is, okay, so if you have somebody who is splitting and we find out that they have borderline personality disorder. Okay, so what would be the evidence-based treatment, or what's one of the well-known evidence-based treatments that we use to treat borderline personality disorder? And so that's when we get into DBT. Okay. And so then we went into some techniques that are used with DBT. Okay. Um, and so another question, I asked a lot of questions on this one. Blank is the hallmark of BDP, leading to frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined separation. So what is the hallmark of BDP? And the answer was fear. Fear is the hallmark of BDP. If you think of a BPD, BDP is Boogie Down Production. Some of y'all may or may not know about that, but I keep mixing it up. It's just stuck in my head. But it's not that. It's borderline BPD, borderline personality disorder. Sorry about that. So another question. We were loading them this week. Who is the author? Because when I start asking some of these questions and we're talking about Glennon, many people were saying, hey, well, you know what? They were on it. The groups are on it, man. They're smart. And so it was like, well, what about, oh, man, we're about to run out of time. We got to see this. What about, um, you know, attachment? This person just doesn't seem to be very attached. And so that was very important to know about that. And if we're going to talk about attachment, we can't get out of the session without talking about who's involved with attachment. And I made this question, I think, kind of easy, but who is the author or authors of attachment theory? And we know Erickson, he's more the psychosocial. He believed that it wasn't just, he wasn't down with Freud. With Freud was more in the medical. He said our environment influences. As a matter of fact, it influenced me quite much because I was I didn't know who my dad was. Erickson didn't. Well, we don't have time to go into that. But we talk about this in Supervision. Sigmund Freud, psychosocial, and he got into the, we don't have time. John Bowley and Mary Ainsworth is what we're looking for. Carl Rogers, he's a client-centered. All right, so what attachment style does Glenda likely exhibit? And Glenda, she doesn't seem to have much of a appreciation for her parent, okay? What about herself? And I don't know that this question gets into it, but let's just say that Glenda doesn't have a love for herself. So then what where would she fall under attachment? What you think about that under Bowley and Ainsworth, their model, where would this person fall on when we're assessing them? So I want you to keep that in mind. And well, I kind of gave the answer away. It's right here. Avoidant, fearful avoidant. So this is going to be a person that's avoidant because anytime when you don't trust others, that's going to make you avoidant. Okay, because it's only two. I don't want to go too deep, but it's only two. Dismissive avoidant. Okay, so you kind of have more trust in yourself, but not other people. And then you have fearful avoidant. You don't have trust in other people or yourself. And that is the one where we see more severe situations. Well, what does this look like in real time? And how do we get there? Someone who has this type of attachment style, what type of environment would they have had to be in to just not trust anybody, but then not have much of a love and appreciation for themselves either because of their low self-esteem, feelings of low self-worth and things like that. So we're gonna kind of get into that if this thing will let me. Okay, so we're gonna stop the share here. And I want y'all to look at this, man. And so this is the thing. 47, 57. I can't count. Okay. I'm running over time. So this is the situation. Golly. All right. So we showed him a video. All right. And what happens is when you are trying to bring families together, I had somebody call me not too long ago, and I actually answered the phone, and they were like, "Hey, I'm trying to get back with my kids, and we've been separated." And I had to prepare them for if we do family intervention, what this is going to look like, because they're going to have resentments against you, and it's probably not going to be pretty the way that they express it to you. And guess what? You're going to have to suck it up. I didn't say it like that, but in so many words, I was telling them that you're going to have to be to the point to where you're so secure in not having the shame and guilt about what you have done, that you can listen, because they need to get that off their chest, and they're going to need you to show more of a response of compassion than defensiveness. So that's a lot. And I knew they didn't have the insurance, but I was just trying to help them. And so we just processed a couple things real quick to get them ready. Like if we're going to go down this direction. The reason I say this is because this person had to be coached. Don't take anything that you see because this person not a therapist, but this is a good example of what it looks like, and how you, when you deal with someone who may be having some issues with with just living, due to trauma. All right, so let's see if we can try to bring this video into play, and you tell me what attachment style that you feel that this person has. So I want you to be looking at it and having your mind be thinking, okay, what attachment style is this? And this is from Iyanla Vincent, Fix Your Life. Want to give credit there from OWN. Okay. And so background is that this particular person was given up by her mother, to a loved one, somebody that was related to them, and she was sexually abused. Okay. Now she was sexually abused, but the problem is her mom had been sexually abused by the same people. So figure that out in your mind when you're trying to build relationship with a parent who knew what they went through, but then they put you in harm's way. How do you work with a client like that to get them to the point of forgiveness? You know what I'm saying? How do you get them to understand? That's what we try to eventually help our clients to understand. It's that saying that something about that if you're taking in all the poison, y'all know the saying, if you're taking in all the poison expecting that somebody else is going to die or something like that. One day I'll get that quote right. But that's what we're doing. And so sometimes we have to break down to clients that forgiveness is, in a sense, can be thought of as a selfish act for yourself. It's not about them, because what it is, I have to get to the point of forgiveness from the standpoint of, like, I have to be able, from the standpoint of being able to let go. I can't allow for myself to continue to have these ulcers, to continue to have all this hate. And the girl's going to talk about the hate, to continue to have all because of you. So forgiveness doesn't mean that I'm letting you off the hook. Forgiveness from the standpoint that I am letting go. Okay. So I'm letting go, because the more that I hold you and not let it go, for not forgiving is just holding it. And you could do that if you want to, but it makes you rot. And so we try to help our clients to understand the dynamics and give them the choice for what they want to do. But let's look at this situation. We're gonna go way over on this one, but we're gonna try to get this broken down. How would you deal with this situation with this client?
Did you know that's what she had been through? She told me that she was molested, but she never told me exactly who it was.
Or that she had had the same experience
The
as
same
you?
experience.
Wow. And what else? What is that? Tell me what's going on right now.
Anger,
That's not anger, baby. That's rage.
pretty much.
And how do you live that? How does that show up in your life, that rage? How does it show up?
Because I never understood, and I still don't understand why my mother gave me to these people.
Ask her. Ask her. She's sitting right there.
How could you?
Also, I want y'all to be thinking about this. When this happens to a person, what ends up affecting their mind? What do they generally believe is the reason for these things happen? Who do they blame? You know, where does the blame and the negative emotions, like, does that end up being on them? Like what usually would you identify the mindset of a person likely to be that has experienced this? And it's interesting to listen to the impact of this experience from her.
Go ahead,
How
speak
could
it.
you give me to this family and you knew what you went through? That's the reason why I actually really held a grudge against you all this long time. That's why I actually had basically started hating you for that. Because you gave me to a family that you knew that the things you were going through and they didn't do nothing about it.
Yeah. Give it sound, Miss Precious. Miss Precious, give it sound. What's the sound? Open your mouth. There's silence among y'all. Got to end today. Open your mouth. What is the sound? Open your mouth. Open your mouth. Come on. You don't have to hide your face. Nothing to be ashamed of. Look at me. Yes. Speak it. Speak it.
I just hate it. I hate my past.
Yeah. And what about hating yourself, Miss Precious?
I do.
Yes, I know you do. I know you do.
You know, I hated her. I really did.
Tell her I hated you.
I hated you.
Yeah.
I held a grudge
Yes.
for so long.
Yes.
And it made me hate that you were my mom. It made me hate that, you know, I was even alive. And it made me really just feel like I wish you would have had that abortion with me instead of just giving me to a pack of wolves.
What's your 2 words, Mama? What's your 2 words?
Forgive me.
I don't even have the words to explain or speak to.
So we're gonna stop it right there. But she had been coached to respond with forgive me, because um even though your client doesn't have to forgive, um just the fact, the mere fact, some of y'all that have experienced situations like this or similar, um the mere fact that a parent is asking for forgiveness is a show and a sign somewhat of accountability. So even if you decide not to forgive, it's a major thing, because in most cases like this, or in many cases like this, what's going to happen is, because there's so much dysfunction with that parent, they're going to defend, and they're going to put it back, in a sense, in the lap of the person who was violated, because of their own guilt, because of their own shame. So if you're in a situation like this, many times what you have to do is work with the parent in this case to find out their story, find out their guilt, find out their shame, find out the things that they don't want to talk about concerning this, find out the things that they have guilt about. Okay, and help them to work through that process. That is a necessary thing to be done prior to them coming and talking with a hurt child who is having rage. You hear what she said? She says, and so where do you classify her? as far as on the scale of attachment. Okay. Where would you put her? She says, I hate my past. It's a lot of hate. Hate myself. Clue. Hate. I hate you. Have a grudge and hate you that you're my mom. So I hate you. I've hated you. I hate that you're my mom. And I hate that I'm alive. I hate that that you didn't have an abortion. So this right here is like, man, we gotta make sure that she's okay, that she's not wanting to straight take herself out, because I hate that I'm alive, hate that you didn't have an abortion. That's a sign to me. I hate myself. And this shows you the impact of trauma, something that she didn't have anything to do with, that she takes it on herself and she hates herself because of what happened to her. Okay. And then she's hating everybody. And then when you hate everybody, it makes you not want to be here sometimes. So this is an important thing. So when someone does not attach to a parent, dad wasn't in the picture, doesn't attach to a parent, doesn't trust a parent, doesn't attach to self, doesn't trust self, then that's when we get in that column. There's the prognosis is not as great. And that's where we're looking at more of the fearful avoidant. And so not to say she's borderline, not to say that she's splitting or anything like that, but she will fall into that category that would be a little bit more difficult to treat. So because of her lack of trust, you need to make sure that things are staged well before you bring that trauma back into the room, because that's what mama represents. Anyway, we don't have time to go any further. I hope this has been helpful. We're going to go on and stop. We went way over. For those of you all hung around, I hope you got something. But we'll stay tuned for next week. We'll be back and we'll see you then. Y'all take care. Bye.